My name is Ali Abdullah Karim. My kunya is Ali Rida. I was born and raised in Jacksonville, North Carolina. It's a small town. It's called the home of camp. When I was coming up, we went to a school called Georgetown, which was an all-black school. It was the only school that was accredited in Onslow County. By the time, I think it was in '69, they bombed it. They didn't want the white kids to go to an all-black school. So during integration, we had to go to an all-white school. So it became integrated. The school I went to was called Thompson Elementary. Very good teachers. Everybody was, very nice to you, and they tried to educate you. After Thompson Elementary, I went to Jacksonville Junior High. At Jacksonville Junior High in the 7th grade, I read in my history book, the Muhammadan God name is Allah. So my mind asked, how can man say God's name and not worship him? So when I got home that day, I questioned my brother. My brother was 3 years older than I was, and he told me that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was a Muslim, Muhammad Ali was a Muslim. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was Orthodox Muslim, and Muhammad Ali was following a man called Elijah Muhammad. It was a Western version of Islam. That's what he thought. After we talked, he gave me the autobiography of Malcolm X. I started reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, and I couldn't put it down. It was like, my friends called it my Bible, because everywhere I went, I had it too. Malcolm X answered a question for me: what is a man? And to me, Malcolm X, El Hajj Malik Shabazz, he answered the question of what is a man by pointing to Prophet Muhammad as being the best example of a man. So after reading the books on Malcolm X, I started understanding what a man was. And Prophet Muhammad was the example, the perfect example of a man. I graduated in North Carolina. From my high school was called Jacksonville Senior High School. We were the Fighting Cardinals. I played basketball for the school. It was a good school, very good school. I enjoyed growing up with my classmates. To this day, I still am in contact with a great number of my classmates. We grew up like brothers and sisters. White, black, Chinese, whatever we were, that's what we were. To this day, we still in contact. Jacksonville was to me, a very interesting place growing up. Jacksonville is how can I say it? It's diverse. The Marine Corps, the bases there, you see every type of person on earth. I mean, everybody, from the Eskimo to the Chinese, to the African, to the Australian. The base brings a lot of people, there. So it taught us how to be open-minded towards everyone. There was some tolerance. There's still some problems. It helped. The Marine Corps did help. The base broke down a lot of racial barriers, and it still has its, faults. Well, to be honest, I think I've been to about 4 schools. I do not have a degree. I went to school for art. I went to the Art Institute of Atlanta, the Art Institute of Houston, Texas Southern University, and Texas Southern's really where I learned, I would say, culture. I learned the African aspect of art, and it really boosted me, helped me understand what I'm supposed to be doing, and that is bringing about a message so people understand, or bring about a consciousness so people will understand that there's more to life than what we see. To be honest, my family was blessed. We had both father and mother inside the house. My mother worked, my father worked. They both went through life changes. I think my father, now that I'm older, I understand his frustration. growing up in this society, I questioned my father one time when I came back from college. I said, why do you teach us about Santa Claus, Christmas? He said, don't blame me, but blame your mother too, because that's all we knew. And it was true. That's all they knew. They had no idea about reality, you know? I'm not saying that they was totally lost, but their concept of life was to work, raise a family, and that was it. They had no real understanding about the Creator. They were both religious in their own right. My mother and father were both Christians. My brother is he's not really a Christian. He's a conscious person, but he's in between, I'll put it that way. My sister is a Christian. She grew up accepting what was taught. And for myself, I had too many questions. And to be honest, I asked myself one day when I went to the mural, I said, who are you, what are you, why are you here? So my mind started questioning, and again, I went to my brother. And my brother he's only 3 years older than me, but he was able to answer questions. So again, getting back to the autobiography of Malcolm X, I read that and it helped me understand what a man was. This was a very intelligent man who tried to improve his condition. If you don't try to improve your condition, you're stagnated. Yes, I was forced to go to church. I used to hide my shoes, my socks. I did whatever I could do. And to be honest, it was a regular routine. After breakfast, I broke down and cried because I didn't want to go to church. So my mother and father tried to instill, God in us. To be honest, one day I was walking from school with a childhood friend, and we just got in contact for the first time in about 30 plus years. And we talked about God. He didn't believe in God. So I went home saying I didn't believe in God. My mother told me, as long as I live in her house, never say I don't believe in God. So that made me search. And that's when I was going to junior high, the question about Allah and Prophet Muhammad came into, view. I believe my brother pointed down the road. He basically showed me the path to follow. He himself have not followed this path, but he showed me the path. And I feel like that was it. My brother was always very intelligent. He's very intelligent, to be honest. And I was always comfortable being able to ask him anything I wanted to. And now that I'm older, I have quite a few older men that I question about life. Well, to be honest, I realized that my father was very religious, inwardly. He never showed it outwardly. But at certain times, you could see it. My mother wanted to follow the traditions of raising family in church, which was, the regular Southern tradition. My brother was the person that I would always question, hoping, like you said, to show me the right direction. And he did a good job, So my sister have always been quiet. And we never really talk about religion, But my brother and I, we talk very much about life right now. Mm-hmm. The spark was really Allah's name, because I never saw it before. I think I heard it before, but it stuck. It stuck in my mind that I couldn't get rid of. So from the age of 13, I always believed in Allah. I have always prayed to Allah since the age of 13. My childhood friends through high school knew I believed in Allah. From the very beginning of junior high school, from junior high school. The journey to Allah was a blessing that after high school, I was accepted into the Art Institute of Atlanta. So I went to the Art Institute of Atlanta to study commercial art. And as I was going through life changes, I was at the bus stop, and a young Muslim asked me for a light for a cigarette. So I questioned him, and I said, aren't you a Muslim? You don't supposed to be smoking cigarettes, do you? His answer were, we human. We are human beings. We do what everyone else do. I said, okay, I understand that. So we began to talk at the bus stop, and he questioned me about, do I know who Allah is? It was on. I said, yes, I know who Allah is. And we talked thoroughly until it was my turn to get off the bus. And he invited me to meet his father. His father's name was Ibrahim bin Banu. Ibrahim bin Banu is from New York. He was an artist, well-known artist. The Last Poets took one of his pictures and made an album cover out of it. So it was easy to communicate with him. What made me question him was when I started talking to him about Allah, he told me that Adam was the first prophet. That was amazing. It made sense. So then he said Prophet Muhammad was the last prophet. I said, my God. Okay, so Adam was the first prophet and all the other prophets were prophets and Prophet Muhammad the last prophet. That was the connection. Mankind have to follow the people that the Creator sent for them to be guided by. When the brother told me that Adam was the first prophet, it just made so much sense. So I knew I was on the right path. I took my Shahada that evening. After he explained to me that Adam was the first prophet, that Allah is one, that we will be judged on the day of judgment. I mean, everything made sense. So really growing up in America, you really can't accept a dead white man as God, to be honest, to be frank. It doesn't make sense. But anyway, Ibrahim just showed me the reality. So I took my Shahada that night, and my first Salat was Salat to Maghrib. And it was November 15th, 1978. Malcolm, El-Hajj Malik Shabazz? Yes. He was a righteous man. One of his statements was, he wants the truth no matter who tells it. He wants justice no matter who is for or who is against. I mean, everything that Malcolm said was pointing towards Islam. Malcolm was a very sincere man who only wanted to show the reality to his people. I became Sunni. I followed Sunnism for about a year and a half. I had too many questions. Certain things didn't click with me because I had three questions in life: who and what is God? What is a man? Who is a man? And the family structure. Even though I grew up in a household, I knew my grandparents, I knew my great uncles, I knew everybody in my family. But there was still the question: what's the proper or what's the perfect example of the family structure? So when I was questioning, when I had these questions, I came across a brother named Ali Naki. We were in, okay, when I took my Shahada in Atlanta, Georgia, I stayed there for a while, and from there I went back home. And I think '79, I went back home. My parents didn't quite understand me being Muslim. I wasn't eating pork. I wouldn't eat any meat that wasn't halal, and this was strange for them. So I told the brothers I need to leave. So Virginia, there's a masjid in Virginia called Masjid Taqwa, and they invited me to come and stay there. So I went there for the summer and stayed there for the summer. And after that, to be honest, I had to leave there because they were going to beat me. I wasn't following directions. I never accepted things that doesn't make sense to me. It has to be logical. So I called the brothers in North Carolina and told them to come get me because there's going to be some trouble up here. So after that, they came and got me, and I went to New Bern, North Carolina. And the Jami was called Ahlul Bayt. The building, the center, was called Ahlul Bayt. So the story behind this is the brother, one of the brothers who was the head, he was the imam of the community. He called Masjid Yassin. He told Masjid Yassin what he wanted. He wanted a name for the community, and they called it Ahlul Bayt. Now these are staunch Sunnis, and they said name it Ahlul Bayt. So make a long story short, we grew up in a small area in the community was called Ahlul Bayt. The majority of the brothers became Shia. The brother Ali Naki was walking under the sign one day when we was going through the door, and he stopped everybody. It was about 3 or 4 of us. He said, "Do you know what that name means?" We said, "No." He said, "It means people of the house." So I questioned him, and that night he said to me, "You want to know your deen?" I said, "Yes." That night he gave me the book called El Murajat, The Right Path. The 2 scholars, the Sunni and the Shia scholars debating. Beautiful book, beautiful history. The majority of the Muslims who are born Muslims don't know their history. They need to study their history. If they study history, they will understand what happened in history. But getting back to the Ahlul Bayt, my biggest question was the family structure. And in my travels, I did question 2 brothers at one time. One brother from Yemen, one brother was from Egypt. They were both Sunnis. So I said, "Brothers, what example of the family structure did Allah give to us?" So the brother from Egypt said, "The brother from Yemen, he's Sheikh." So he said some stuff, Allah forgive me, I ain't hear half the stuff he said because it didn't sound like nothing. But the last sentence that he said was, "The Ahlul Bayt of Muhammad is the perfect example of the family structure." I wasn't mean. I didn't say where are their hadiths? Why don't we know more about them? But at least they told the truth. There's no example of a family structure better than that of the Ahlul Bayt. Allah named it the Ahlul Bayt, people of the house, the family structure. How clear can it be? And for those who are studying, they need to read about Bibi Fatima. Okay, to me, Bibi was another point in my life that the book called The Right Path told the story of Fatima the Zahra. Fatima the Zahra is the Prophet's daughter. She is the leading lady of this world, the leading lady of the next world. The majority of the Muslim women do not have a clue who she is. They don't know how she died. They know very little about her because she was written out of history. Bibi Fatima, to me, showed me the religion of her father, her husband, and her sons. It's just that clear. Because of her tragedy, because they broke the door on her and injured her and made her have a miscarriage, it caused me to understand what was going on. The people wanted power. They didn't want the truth. At that time, people wanted to take the power of Islam because they saw Islam as the newest, most strongest power there is. So in order to take that, they had to deny her rights. They had to deny Fatima the Zahra the rights. The final nail was what happened to Fatima the Zahra, her tragedy. It's hard for the average Muslim to believe that the Muslims broke the door in on her to drag Imam Ali out the house to give bayat. And they all heard the speech. So the breaking point for me was the tragedy of Fatima the Zahra, the breaking of the door of the house. That was just unbelievable. This is the door that the angel of death knocked on. And just if you don't mind me saying, the angel of death knocked on the door of Fatima the Zahra. She told him to go away. He left. He had a job to do. He had to knock again. She said, "My father's sick. I told you, please go away." So in the 3rd time he knocked, the prophet said, "Let in the servant of Allah." But here's the angel of death who do not have to knock on anybody's door. He had so much respect for Bibi Fatima, he knocked on her door to ask permission to come in. To this day, we still have to ask permission to come in. It was a little emotional. We had a meeting, a gathering. Brothers from Virginia came down, and I cooked, alhamdulillah, and it was a good dinner, but I didn't stay for the dinner. And I was telling the brother, one of the leaders, I told him to step outside. I had something to tell him. I told him that I was Shia. I would never return to Sunni. And we both broke out and cried. I've been Muslim since 78, 36 years, so I've been Shia for about 35, 34 years. The first question is, who is Allah? Who and what is God? Because growing up in America as an African American, as they call us, it's impossible to believe in a dead white God. I mean, it doesn't make sense. It's nothing but white supremacy. You praying to something that can't answer you. Even the Bible says they have hands, they handle not, they have mouths, but they speak not, nor do they speak through their throat. So it can't answer you. Yes, my parents didn't quite understand it. Good point. My parents didn't understand it at all. They thought I lost my mind. To be honest, I helped a friend of mine drive to Clearwater one day. He was going back to college. And I woke up in South Carolina, and I woke up and I looked around, I recognized my surrounding. I told my friend, turn right at that stop sign, turn left, go to those apartments and stop right there. My grandmother was living there. So I knocked on her door, went inside, and I told my grandmother that I was Muslim. I said, Grandmama, I believe in God. All his angels, his books, and all his prophets. My grandmother called my mother and said, leave that boy alone. He's a God-fearing man. So, my grandmother really was the one who stopped the family from persecuting me. It's amazing growing up in America because people have no clue what you go through. Okay, being African American, being male, being Muslim, and being Shia, that's 3 strikes. You're already African American, now you're Muslim, now you're Shia. The beautiful thing is the majority of Americans are starting to read now. And they realize a lot of stuff is propaganda. They realize that they are being shoved the untruth. Even Malcolm X said in 1964, they tried to equate violence with Islam. That was in 64. Well, the reality is your friends are going to reject it unless they are really your close friends. People often hate what they do not know and do not understand, to make it simple. All of my friends understood that I was basically just growing. They knew I was mentally a little different in the sense of I always questioned life. When we got together in groups, we always asked the question, what should we talk about? And my answer will always be life. Because we have to understand why we are here, what we're going through. To be honest, Allah said, lower the wing of humility to your parents. The only thing you cannot do is follow their suggestions if they ask you to put partners with Allah. But if they tell you to pick out the garbage, take out the garbage, wash the car and all that stuff, that's not a problem. Basically, the social change is that I didn't really have too much difficulty because people already knew I was heading down that path already. There were people who did question me, but they were not really close friends. They knew me from a distance. All of my close friends knew that I believed in Allah from as far as they can remember. So by me embracing the Islam, it was just the norm. But getting back to the part about sharing something with, treat your family like your family. Treat your mother as your mother. Treat your father as your father, no matter how they might misunderstand you. Because the Prophet was always the best example. You know, like parents only want the best for their children, but at times they can't see the future. You know, parents can't see what their kids can see. Like I wanted my children, the main thing I tell my children, I do have 3 children, and that's a beautiful thing. My mother had to say Fatima, Zahra, and Muhammad whenever she called her grandchildren. So that was medicine for her heart. She got a chance to see her children, her grandchildren grow up. So she understood me more because she understood that I was not a wild person. I was very sincere about life, and I wanted to help other people to understand what life is about. To make a long story short, Prophet Muhammad came to mankind to teach them to be human beings. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to become human beings. And you can only be a human being by following the example that Allah sent to guide you back to Him. I asked a former teacher of mine, how do we love this thing that we never seen before? We can't hear, we can't touch, nothing can comprehend them. He said, by loving the people He sent to guide you. And that's the Ahlul Bayt. Well, alhamdulillah, to be honest, the majority became Shia. After I came back and questioned them and showed them information, they all start do their research. One brother said that the question I asked him was, what happened to the family of the Prophet after the Prophet died? He said that blew his mind. So he started doing his investigation. Within a month, he was Shia. The whole community became Shia. And to be honest, without saying stuff too bad, we had a very close brother. Now, I remind you, this is the group that was called Ahlul Bayt. We were called Ahlul Bayt. So one brother who went back home found out that we became Shia. He called down, he said, I'm coming out to straighten out that Shia. Those were his words. He came down, we gave him information, he left, he came back, he was praying with his hand down, he's saying, I'm not Shia. He left for the second time, came and called back and said, I'm Shia. But the whole community became Shia, alhamdulillah. Read about the Ahlul Bayt. Read about the people who were sent to guide you back to Him, Allah. These are the people, these are the best examples of mankind. And for women especially, Khadija, alayha salam, Bibi Fatima, alayha salam, and Zainab. These are just three of them, but these are what's missing in a lot of Muslims' life. They don't know about the women in Islam. And it was the women in Islam that saved Islam. As an artist, I have tried to understand and try to project the love of the Ahlul Bayt, of Allah, Prophet Muhammad. As an artist, when I first came into Deen, we was told we could not draw images. So a lot of my artwork were planets with Arabic on it and so forth. The more I read and studied, the more I asked questions, the more I started understanding that we can do certain things. So the main thing is my art represents a conscious rage. I call it a silent rage, because artwork should deliver a message. It should shock you to realize that there's more to life than Mickey Mouse, okay? I was talking to a close friend of mine, and he's a preacher, and I asked him, who is Mickey Mouse? And he fell out laughing. The majority of people can tell you about Mickey Mouse, but they can't tell you about the angel Jabril. But anyway, art represents life. Life represents art. Art is history. And basically my art is to help bring about a consciousness of my favorite people, the Ahlul Bayt. My first mural I did for a church. It was very interesting. It was very good people. The bishop started off with 6 people studying the Bible, and his congregation grew, and he had to buy a building, and then he bought a school. And in the school, he wanted a mural. So one of his members, I worked with one of his church members, and his church member heard me mention that I was an artist. So he asked me to come and show some artwork to the bishop. And to be honest, I didn't take no artwork to Bishop. Bishop and I hit it off very, very well, because we talked about all the prophets, and that helped. So he told me to come on back and do the mural. And I apologize, I don't have a picture of the mural. The mural was 17 feet by 8 feet. All I can say is learn to love the Ahlul Bayt. Thank Allah for them and read about them and help other people learn who the Ahlul Bayt are. Assalamu alaikum.